There was a time when Emma Brooks believed the biggest thing standing between her and the life she wanted was a lack of motivation. She thought motivation was the missing ingredient. She watched videos about success. She bought planners. She wrote ambitious goals. She promised herself that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, she would wake up earlier. Tomorrow, she would finally become disciplined. Tomorrow, she would stop wasting time and start becoming the person she always imagined she could be. But there was one question Emma could never answer. If she truly wanted to change, why did she keep returning to the same patterns? Because the truth was, Emma was not lazy. She was not incapable. She was not someone who lacked dreams. In fact, Emma Brooks had more dreams than most people around her. The problem was something much deeper, something she could not see yet. And that hidden problem was quietly affecting millions of people who are constantly trying to improve their lives, but keep finding themselves back at the same starting point. Because sometimes, the person who wants change the most is not the person who needs more motivation. Sometimes, they need something completely different. They need a better system. And this is the story of how one small habit changed the way Emma Brooks saw herself, her future, and the person she was becoming. Before we continue deeper into Emma's journey, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if stories about psychology, human behavior, and life transformation speak to you, consider subscribing to Niosh Chronicles, where every story reveals a hidden truth about becoming a better version of yourself. Because the truth often lives between the lines. For most of Emma Brooks' life, she was the kind of person people described as responsible. She showed up. She kept promises. She worked hard. She cared deeply about the people around her. From the outside, her life looked stable. She had a career. She had goals. She had the ability to create change. But behind closed doors, Emma carried a frustration she rarely admitted. She felt like she was constantly preparing to become the person she wanted to be, but never actually becoming her. Every few months, the cycle repeated. A new goal, a new notebook, a new plan, a new version of Emma. At the beginning, everything felt possible. She would sit at her small kitchen table early in the morning with a fresh journal, a cup of coffee, and a list of everything she wanted to improve. She wanted to take better care of herself. She wanted to become healthier. She wanted to read more. She wanted to develop new skills. She wanted to stop feeling like life was passing by while she was waiting for the perfect moment to begin. Emma believed that if she could just find enough motivation, everything would finally change. So she searched for it everywhere. She listened to podcasts during her morning commute. She watched videos about successful people. She saved quotes about discipline. She filled her phone with reminders about becoming her best self. For a few days, sometimes even a few weeks, it worked. Emma felt unstoppable. She would create detailed schedules. She would plan every hour. She would imagine the future version of herself who had everything under control. But then life happened. A stressful week at work. A difficult day. A late night. An unexpected responsibility. Before we continue, if you believe every life story carries a lesson hidden beneath the surface, subscribe to Niosh Chronicles. Here, we uncover the psychology behind human struggles, transformations, and the moments that change everything. Because today's story may look like it is about Emma Brooks, but the truth is, it might be about something you have been experiencing too. For years, Emma Brooks thought her problem was a lack of discipline. She looked at people around her who seemed to have everything together and wondered what they knew that she didn't. Some people seemed to wake up early without struggling. Some people seemed to exercise consistently. Some people seemed to work toward their goals every day without needing a burst of inspiration. Emma believed those people had something inside them that she was missing. Maybe they had stronger willpower. Maybe they were naturally more focused. Maybe they were simply built differently. But what Emma could not see was that she was comparing her private struggles to everyone else's visible results. And that comparison slowly created a belief that became even harder to break. The belief that she was someone who could start things, but never finish them. This is one of the most dangerous beliefs a person can develop. Because eventually, the struggle stops being about the habit itself. It becomes about identity. A person no longer says, "I have not built consistency yet." They begin to say, "I am just not a consistent person." And once a person accepts that identity, every failed attempt becomes proof. Every missed day becomes evidence. Every setback becomes another reason to stop trying. Emma did not know it at the time, but she was not fighting a motivation problem. She was fighting a story she had been telling herself for years. A story about who she was. And changing that story would require her to stop searching for more motivation and start understanding how real change actually happens. After another difficult week at work, Emma found herself sitting alone at her kitchen table. The same place where she had written hundreds of goals. The same place where she had created dozens of plans. Her black leather journal sat open in front of her. Inside were pages filled with dreams, ideas, promises, plans she once believed would change everything. But as she flipped through the pages, something felt different. For the first time, Emma was not looking at those unfinished goals with disappointment. She was looking at them with curiosity. She started asking a different question. What if the problem was never that I didn't want it badly enough? That question stayed with her. Because deep down, Emma knew she wanted change. She had always wanted change. So why was wanting it not enough? Why did knowing what to do not automatically make it easier to do? Why did every new beginning feel powerful, but every routine eventually disappear? Those questions eventually led Emma to someone who would challenge everything she believed about personal growth. His name was David Carter. David Carter was not the kind of person who gave dramatic speeches about success. He was not someone who promised overnight transformation. At 58 years old, David had spent decades studying people, decisions, and the patterns that shape everyday lives. He understood something Emma had never considered. Most people do not fail because they lack desire. They fail because they create systems that depend on feelings. And feelings change. David met Emma at a quiet coffee shop on a Saturday morning. Emma arrived carrying her leather notebook, filled with pages of goals and questions. She expected advice. She expected another list of things she needed to start doing. But instead, David asked her a question she was not prepared for. Emma, how many times have you tried to change your life? She thought for a moment. Honestly, too many times to count. David nodded. And how many times did you create a completely new plan? Emma smiled slightly. Almost every time. David looked at her notebook. Then he asked, why do you keep creating a new plan when the old one was never really tested? That question stayed silent between them, because Emma realized something uncomfortable. She had spent years chasing new beginnings, but she had never spent enough time building something simple enough to maintain. She was always looking for the perfect routine, the perfect schedule, the perfect moment, but she had ignored the power of something much smaller. A habit that was easy enough to repeat, a habit that did not require her to feel inspired, a habit that could become part of who she was. And this is where Emma's story connects with something psychologists have discovered about human behavior. Most people think habits begin with action, but they actually begin with identity. The person who says, I need to force myself to exercise, is approaching change differently from someone who believes, I am someone who takes care of my body. The action may look the same, but the belief behind it changes everything. Emma had been trying to change her actions without changing the system supporting those actions. She was trying to build a new life with old patterns. And no matter how much motivation she collected, the old patterns were stronger. Because motivation is temporary. But systems are designed to continue even when motivation disappears. If Emma's story feels familiar, it is because millions of people are living the same cycle. They are not lacking dreams. They are not lacking intelligence. They are not lacking potential. They are simply relying on a resource that was never designed to last forever. Motivation was meant to start the journey, not carry the entire journey. The question Emma had to answer next was not, how do I become more motivated? The real question was, what is the smallest action I can repeat until it becomes part of who I am? And that question would lead Emma toward the one habit that changed everything. By the time 6 months had passed, Emma Brooks realized something that would have sounded impossible to the woman she used to be. She no longer spent her mornings arguing with herself. There was a time when every decision felt like a negotiation. Should I write today? Maybe I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it when I feel more motivated. Those conversations had slowly disappeared, not because Emma had become stronger than everyone else, but because she had become someone who no longer depended on those conversations. The decision had already been made. And that's one of the most overlooked truths about human behavior. The brain loves certainty. Every decision you remove from daily debate saves mental energy. The more often you repeat the same action in the same environment, the less your brain treats it as a difficult choice. Eventually, what once required effort begins to feel natural. Psychologists sometimes describe this as shifting from conscious effort toward automatic behavior. Not because the habit becomes perfect, but because it becomes familiar. Emma didn't wake up every morning excited to write. Some mornings, she still felt tired. Some mornings, work felt overwhelming. Some mornings, life interrupted her plans. The difference was that her system never asked her to feel inspired. It only asked her to keep one promise. 10 minutes. That was all. The habit stayed small, but the identity it built became enormous. Because every time Emma sat down with her journal, she wasn't simply writing. She was casting another vote for the kind of person she wanted to become. And every repeated vote slowly changed the outcome. The remarkable thing about identity isn't that it changes in dramatic moments. It changes quietly, one ordinary day at a time. If you've been listening to Emma's story, you may have noticed something. Her life didn't change because she found a secret that no one else knew. It changed because she finally stopped asking the wrong question. For years she asked, how can I become more motivated? The better question was, how can I make the right action easier to repeat? That single shift changes almost everything. Because motivation is emotional. Systems are practical. Motivation rises and falls. Systems remain. Motivation starts. Systems continue. And perhaps that's why so many people stay trapped. They keep waiting to become the kind of person who always feels ready. But very few people ever feel ready every single day. The people we admire are not people who never struggle. They are often people who built systems that carried them through the struggle. David Carter once shared one final lesson with Emma before they stopped meeting every Saturday morning. He said, your future isn't created by your biggest decisions. It's created by the smallest decisions you repeat the longest. Emma never forgot those words. Years later, she realized they applied to almost every area of life. Relationships, health, finances, learning, confidence, even trust. None of those are built in a single dramatic moment. They're built through repeated moments that most people overlook. The ordinary moments. The invisible moments. The moments no one applauds. Because real transformation is usually too quiet to become a headline. But it's powerful enough to change a life. So before we leave Emma's story, here's the practical system she unknowingly built. At Niosh Chronicles, we'll call it the Anchor Habit Framework. If you want to apply it today, remember these 5 steps. Step 1. Choose one habit, not 10. When everything feels important, nothing receives enough attention. Reduce your focus until it becomes impossible to ignore. Step 2. Make it so small that excuses lose their power. If your habit depends on perfect conditions, it won't survive ordinary life. Start with something you can still do on your busiest day. Step 3. Attach it to something you already do. Emma didn't create a complicated morning routine. She connected writing to making coffee. The coffee became the reminder. The reminder became the routine. Step 4. Design your environment. Don't rely on memory. Place the journal where you'll see it. Reduce friction. Make good choices easier than bad ones. Step 5. Never miss twice. Missing once is part of being human. Missing twice is where old patterns begin rebuilding themselves. Start again immediately. Not next Monday. Not next month. The next opportunity. That's how consistency survives. Not through perfection. Through recovery. Now think about your own life. Not the version you hope to become someday. The version you are becoming through today's repeated choices. Because every habit is writing a story, not just about what you do, but about who you believe you are. And maybe, just maybe, the thing holding you back has never been motivation. Maybe you've simply been carrying the weight of trying to change everything at once, when all you ever needed was one better habit, one better system, one small promise kept long enough to become part of your identity. Emma Brooks didn't become extraordinary because she found endless motivation. She became extraordinary because she stopped chasing motivation. She built something stronger. She built trust in herself. And once you trust yourself, everything else begins to change. So now I'd like to leave you with one question. If you could build just one habit that your future self would thank you for every single day, what would it be? Share it in the comments. I'd genuinely love to read your answers. And you may inspire someone else who's watching this today. And if this story helped you see yourself differently, subscribe to Niosh Chronicles. Every week, we uncover the hidden truths behind psychology, identity, resilience, discipline, and human behavior, because the most powerful lessons aren't always obvious. They live between the lines. Until the next story, Keep looking beyond the surface. Because sometimes the smallest change doesn't just improve your life. It quietly becomes the reason your life changes at all.